Hello and welcome to the English Country House. And before we go on, yeah, I know I look like Monty Don's love child, but frankly, they're comfortable, so I'm going with it. So we've been here at the English Country House for very nearly a year now, and in that time we've been really just looking at what's coming up, assessing the quality of the soil, looking at what vegetables or existing sort of plants and flowers have sort of thrived in those conditions. To be honest, as we all know, certainly here in the UK, it hasn't really been a very good summer at all. We've had a lot of rain, lots of sort of overcast days. It really hasn't gone for more than a day or two with any meaningful sunshine. So it hasn't really been the greatest year with which to assess the actual sort of quality of what's coming up and what's growing. What we have done though is realise that a lot of the beds here were filled with sort of dying shrubs. That we've established that the soil quality isn't great, and really that it's obviously going to require a lot of work. At the moment, things are very overgrown because of the amount of rain that we've had. It's very difficult to stay on top of 4.5 acres, especially when you're doing other things as well. So part of today is really about how do we prepare for next year? How do we prepare for autumn? And really what that boils down to is soil nutrition and the kind of compost that you can make yourself and supplement your existing reserves of compost if you've got, and then sort of going from there and making sure, plus a whole heap of other things we're going to do as well. So a really good way of supplementing the compost that you can buy in the shops, which is obviously can be quite expensive, is to have what's called a nutrient bank. Now, from a nutrient bank perspective, it can be a composition of wood chips like we've got here, but also old leaves as well. They can be really, really nutritious for ground, for the soil that you'll be putting in. And it's relatively easy to do. You'll need some old wood chippings if you've got them. Any sort of leaves that you get together. I've seen some people burn them, bin them, whatever, but if you can actually get them in a single place and let them break down over a period of time, sort of 6+ months, you're actually looking at a pretty good source for nutrition and nutrients for the soil. So we're very fortunate here at the English Country House that we've got an existing, it's not massive, but it's probably enough because you don't actually need huge amounts of this stuff. When you actually dig down as well, you can smell the decomposition. It smells great, I have to say. So yeah, what you can do is to start to use this, break it down, and then go from there. So we've gathered some of the nutrient bank, the wood chip mix of leaves. This is one of the beds that originally, when we moved in, was just filled with a load of shrubs. It wasn't really doing anything. They weren't looking great. They were past their sell-by date. They weren't contributing in terms of beauty or pollination with bees and other sort of insects as well. So one of the things we want to do next year or preparing for next year, in terms of making this place pay for itself a little bit, is to be growing wildflowers. 1, it looks beautiful. 2, it's great for birds and the bees. And 3, we'd like to be able to sell sort of dry flower bouquets. But as part of that, as I say, we need to clear some of the space in some of the beds. So I'm going to be taking some of this. I'm only going to start with this corner now because the whole bed isn't fully cleared yet. There's still a few sort of root systems that we've got to clear out, but as an example, it serves a purpose. So I'm literally just spreading this on here. And then giving it a bit of a sort of a rub down. You can use obviously a trowel, spade if you don't want to get your hands dirty. I don't really care if I get dirty hands, although I did get stung earlier, which wasn't great, but there we go. And we're literally, as I say, just adding to the existing soil makeup that we've got, and that's a good sort of starting point. So obviously with it being autumn now as well, and this episode, featuring what we need to do to prepare for autumn and then subsequently winter and spring, one of the things that happens, as we all know, is that we get a lot of leaf fall. Certainly here at the English Country House, we've got hundreds of trees around the land here, and it's a never-ending job to sort of keep this clear. However, what we've started to do, when we moved in a year or so ago, we started to create little banks of leaves from a leaf mould perspective. These ones have just been added, obviously, sort of put into place, as it were. But I said 6 months earlier, but I mean, you know, that's a real minimum. Probably best would be at least a couple of years plus in terms of how long you can leave it for. So by taking action today and doing something like this, gathering your leaves, sort of leaving it in one place to break down, then you know you're setting yourself up for a couple of years' time to have additional supplementary nutrition for your soil. That can mean you can be a little bit more self-reliant and a little less dependent on buying quite expensive compost. So literally just get it together, sweep it all up. You can burn it and bin it, a lot of people do, but you may as well just sort of pile it all in together and leave it for at least sort of a couple of years or so. You might start getting some breakdown after, as I say, 6 to 12 months, but it's probably best to leave it for a little bit longer. Good stuff. So almost anything in your garden in terms of any sort of natural, if you've got old plants, perhaps for whatever reason they've outlived their use-by, sell-by date, their usefulness, whatever it is, you want to replace it. Again, very tempting to throw it out, but create yourself a sort of a compost area. This one is one we inherited, as I say, when we moved in at the end of last year, the end of 2022. And there's quite a lot of stuff has been added to it. One of the things that you can do if you're a little concerned about it sort of, you know, perhaps being a little bit too much, as it were, is you can start to break it down manually and just chop it up into smaller bits. Just makes the whole sort of decaying process just a little bit faster, quicker, and means it's less unsightly. There's less sort of general sort of mess as well. So I'm just going to start taking these shears and just sort of chopping things up just a little bit more finely. And we've got some old sort of veggies, as we say, and bits and bobs here and there. We've been clearing out the greenhouse, all the stuff that was left in there that we've inherited. You know, it wasn't salvageable in terms of its usefulness. Partly, I think, possibly because of the really bad summer we've had, maybe. But again, you know, the kind of things that were in there weren't the kind of things that we want to continue with and go forward growing. So a little tip as well, if you're shearing something like this, if you can, put your thumbs like that, because I've just been slamming my thumbs together a couple of times. It was a little bit painful. So I'll carry on with this, and then we'll start breaking it down a little bit. I've been meaning to do this for a long time. These kind of the jobs that you pretty much put off till autumn, and that's fine. But as I say, I'll get this chopped up, mulched up, and then pushed into the corner. Keep it nice and tidy, keep it out the rest of the garden, as it were. Let it break down over a period of a couple of years or so if you can. Yeah, and take it from there. So in today's episode, we've looked at a variety of soil improvement techniques in preparation for autumn. We've covered off the notion of having a nutrient bank. We've looked at leaf molds. We've looked at general sort of compost. We've looked at breaking compost down, as well as clearing your beds ready for autumn. This is going to be the first of a few videos because we're trying to get it all into one and still keep people's attention. Probably isn't great. So as I said, we're just going to have a series of videos of what to do next in terms of prepping for autumn, as it were. The last thing to say, get your hands in the earth, get outside and garden, just have some fun. Thanks very much. If you like today's content, as ever, please comment, like and subscribe. It's a massive help to us. Thanks very much.